Now, the WMAL Fisher House Radiothon continues. Please support our wounded warriors and their families by calling in your contribution now. 888-294-8560. That's 888-294-8560.
5:06 on this Friday in your nation's capital. It's the 6th day of December. And as you just heard from that big, important broadcast soundy voice, it is day 2 of the WMAL Fisher House Radiothon. Good morning, all you Patriots out there. Good morning, Patrice. You too. You're one of those Patriots. I know I did pause there, didn't I? Good to have Patrice Onwuka here. Coming up at 7:05, Kurt Schlichter will join us to make the case for Pete Hegseth. 7:35, Steve Moore, talk about the Doge meeting yesterday. And then 8:35, Representative Chip Roy, who was in that meeting. But let's get right down to brass tacks here, Patrice. Yes. It's the Fisher House Radiothon. And it's day 2, and now that it's 5:07 and O'Connor and Company is going, we got to get those phones ringing, and we need to get donations in for this great organization that does such incredible work in such an incredibly efficient. You talk about government efficiency at Doge. Fisher House is the epitome of that. So much of the money that you donate to Fisher House, like 94%, 94 cents on the dollar, 93 cents on the dollar, goes straight to those who need it most. Beautiful. You compare that to any other charity out there. I trust you. This is huge.
Most of the money goes to overhead in a lot of places.
And I've got some great news for you, and this just warms my heart. You know, yesterday we had this wonderful to have this matching donation from Leonardo DRS. It's been 12 years now. We've been counting out. This was a surprise as we woke up this morning. Listen to this now. Every single donation that you all generously make this morning over the course of the next several hours during O'Connor and Company will be matched, will be doubled to the tune of $40,000, Patrice.
Oh, that's awesome.
It gets even awesomer. Is that a word? Let's go with it. It gets even awesomer, Patrice, because this isn't from a big corporation. It's not from a giant entity, which, by the way, we love, and we appreciate those companies who do this. Listen to this. This is a $40,000 matching donation from 2 of our longtime listeners.
Really?
This is from Jeffrey and Janice from Mount Airy. They've been listening to WMAL for years. They're part of our family.
Yes.
We rely on each other so much here, like a family on WMAL. We know that we're here for you, and Lord knows you're there for us, because if you weren't there, we wouldn't be here. And so this year they decided, Jeffrey and Janice did, that they really wanted to give back. And the best way to give back to, we do this free every day. We live in a world of, streaming and subscribers and memberships and VIP and all that stuff. And that's cool. I belong to many of them. But what we do on WMAL on the public airwaves is still 100%. We provide it to you.
Yes.
And we're sustained by our advertisers and our partners. And Jeffrey and Janice from Mount Airy decided, we're part of the family. We want to give back, and the best way to give back to WMAL is by making a donation to Fisher House Foundation.
Oh, that's terrific.
Jeffrey and Janice, we tip our hats to you. We bow to you. We give you a huge radio hug right now, as you have been incredibly generous with this $40,000 matching gift. So now, this is where you come in, ladies and gentlemen, who aren't Jeffrey and Janice. We're not asking for $40,000 from each and every one of you. We're asking for $25 from you. We're asking for $50, maybe $100 to go to Fisher House Foundation. The second you give that $25 donation, it will automatically become a $50 donation thanks to this matching gift. And that's going to go all morning long. So please, if you can, call 888-294-8560. They're standing by right now at Fisher House. They're ready to take your call. 888-294-8560, and let's drain this matching gift as quickly as we possibly can and count up to that $40,000 this morning.
Let's do it.
Please do that. Patrice, listen, I spent all morning talking about Fisher House yesterday. I know you were listening at one point when you were dropping your kids off, but you're back now for another Fisher House Radiothon. As we have these conversations throughout the morning, I'm interested in your reaction to it and what it means to you as we hear from these families and these great people.
Well, first off, good morning, everybody. And I am...
and happy
Friday.
Thank you.
Goodness,
that was close. Well, we got right to business.
Listen, it touches something in my heart when I hear a mother say or a wife say, my husband was injured. And he's got to be, I need to be by his side. And it's not just going to be for overnight, for one night, 2 nights. I could cover that at the hotel. It's going to be for 3 weeks. It's going to be for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to pay, make sure that we have a roof at home, be at home and still be able to be with him by his side?
Yeah.
And the fact that Fisher House comes in and surrounds the families of service members with love, providing them not just a bed, not just a hostel, but a home. It does something to me, because this is the season of generosity. And for folks, if you don't know, America is the most generous nation on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
There's data to back that up.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why, our faith, our altruism, and our belief in supporting one another, not waiting for the government to fill a need.
Amen.
If you did, that need would still be unmet right now.
Yes.
And so here is Fisher House, a great example of civil society, regular people like you and me, kicking in what we have, our pennies, our dollars, and helping to make sure that when somebody is in a moment of crisis, where they're going to stay is not the top issue.
Yeah.
It's being there for their service member, their family member.
Well said. And what Fisher House does in particular, when Zach Fisher asked, "What can I do?" This is back before 9/11. This is over 30 years ago.
Wow.
He wanted to help. He wanted to support our military, and he found out that when spouses and parents and children of service members need to visit their loved one, their wounded warrior, when they've been injured in combat, or if they're just undergoing whatever illness or treatment that happens. Life happens when you're in the military, right?
Yeah.
They were having to go out of pocket for hotel rooms. They were, in some cases, if they couldn't afford it, they were sleeping in their cars. They were sleeping in their cars in a parking lot while they waited to go see their loved one who was recovering. And Zach Fisher said, forget that. I'm a builder. That's what I do. I'll build a house.
Wow.
And they figured out this great private-public partnership where they build the houses on government land, on military land. Then they gift it back to the government. It's operated by the military, and they operate it incredibly well and incredibly efficient. And it works. It works. And now, instead of a wife sleeping in a car, instead of a mom or dad, for months and months and months on end, you're right. They don't just have a house. I mean, honestly, if they had to do all over again, they shouldn't call it Fisher House. It should be Fisher Home, because these homes are beautiful. They're incredible. And just like we're a family here on WMAL, they create this family in these Fisher Houses where everyone is going through very similar trauma, very similar things emotionally. They're there for their husband. They're there for their wife or their mother and their father when they go visit them in the hospital. Then when they come home, they've got their own stuff they're going through.
Right.
Imagine the emotional drain on them. While they're being strong for their loved one, for their wounded warrior, they come back, and then that family unit comes together. All of those different families come together in those beautiful kitchens and the beautiful big TV rooms and family rooms at Fisher House, and they're there for each other. And that's part of the healing for the family as well.
That's right.
I mean, this is what Fisher House does, and no one else does it, and it can only continue with your support. 888-294-8560. And again, every dollar donated this morning matched 1-for-1 to the tune of $40,000 to our incredible, generous listeners, Jeffrey and Janice from Mount Airy. I could talk on and on, obviously, about Fisher House, Patrice.
It touches me, because I was listening yesterday morning, and I think if that happened to him, can I afford to spend 3 months in another place? What about our boys? Would they not get to see their daddy?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And by the way, for his recovery, having you right by his side and seeing his boys every day, acting crazy in the hospital room, and then, but knowing that when they leave, he doesn't have to worry about you. He doesn't have to worry about. I hear this so often when you talk to these moms.
Yes.
When their kid has this traumatic brain injury, their son is injured by an IED in Afghanistan. They're airlifted out, they're medevaced out, they're in the hospital room. When they wake up and reach consciousness, sometimes weeks later, the first thing they ask is my mom okay?
Oh, wow.
Is my mom okay? That's the first thing they think about. And thanks to Fisher House, the answer can be, your mom is safe. In fact, your mom's right here, and she's going to be here until you're ready to get up and walk again. Make that phone call, 888-294-8560. Help Fisher House do what no one else is doing. Like I said, only they can do it, and they can only do it with your support. 888-294-8560. It's 5:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes.
You're listening to the WMAL Fisher House Radiothon. Call to donate, 888-294-8560.
And we are in our 22nd year, by the way, of affiliation with Fisher House. This began just after the War on Terror began in earnest.
Yeah.
Back then, Fisher House had just completed house number 31. And, well, right now, Fisher House just finished house number 99. On the brink of number 100. Isn't that amazing?
They need to just paint 100 over, paint 100 on the 100th house. And
well, let's ask Michelle Horde. Yes. She's the Vice President of Communications for Fisher House and also a retired Army officer, served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Germany, Kosovo. What's the story, Michelle? What's that 100th house going to look like? Is there going to be a giant sign out front?
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you for having me, Larry and Patrice. Well, it's going to be a big surprise, I think. Our decorator who comes in and makes these Fisher houses just so comfortable and so welcoming, she kind of keeps a close hold on how it's going to look. But I'm imagining it'll probably have some red, white, and blue in it since it's our 100th house. And, I'm sure it'll be just lovely. Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
But we are very excited. 100 houses is a huge deal, but it's not the stopping point at all. We've got a lot of work to do. In fact, we've already started our 101st house in Little Rock, Arkansas. So we are not slowing down.
Well, I'd love for you to sort of elaborate on that, because I think that there may be some impression out there that the need is no longer as vital for Fisher houses, that in some way, because we're not active duty in Afghanistan and Iraq anymore at the level that we were certainly 10, 15 years ago, that, well, now Fisher House, thank God, that problem is solved. But actually, it's quite the opposite, is my understanding, as these veterans start to age.
Yeah, you've got two things going on. First of all, we've got plenty of service members who are still active duty and training, and they are, things happen in training. You'll hear later today from a woman who will tell you about her son who was injured in a training accident. So it is something that, those active duty service members and their family members who are qualified dependents that can also have their families there at Fisher houses, they still have injuries and they still have illnesses and things like that going on. And then, certainly our veteran population people continue to age. You have all these folks coming out of the military who served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And as they get older, their injuries continue to need care. Or I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I feel a few more problems with my knees and things like that as I get older. So, that care is there and for our veterans as well. So there's no slowing down for us, like I said, because that is a need that won't go away for our veteran and our military community.
Michelle, we're speaking with the Vice President of Communications for Fisher House. Michelle, tell us about some of the other programs that Fisher House does. I mean, it's important to provide these homes for the family members of our service members, but what else do you do that serves the family of the veterans?
Yeah, so our core program is keeping military and veteran families together during illness. So we have two programs that accompany that, our Hero Miles and our Hotel for Heroes programs, where people can donate their loyalty points for hotels or their frequent flyer miles, and those go to bring families closer to their loved ones by us purchasing airline tickets for them. And then we also have the hotels program, like I said, and that's for when a Fisher House isn't available or it's full. We're able to put people in hotels that way. So those are two programs. And then another one that's really exciting is our scholarship program to honor the children of military service members and veterans. And those programs actually open up next week on December 11th. So our applications will open up. So for any of your listeners out there, if they're former active duty or current active duty, they can, or retired, military, they can have their kids apply for scholarships.
That's fantastic. And Michelle, one thing also I've learned about everyone who works at Fisher House is that, no matter what your job is, you end up integrating and interacting with these families. It's not like you have a giant staff there, but everyone that gets it done, you have a family atmosphere in your office. And I know that you're out at these Fisher houses all the time. You're meeting and talking with the families. What happened this year that may have struck a chord with you? Something extraordinary always seems to happen when you walk into one of these homes?
Oh my gosh, I meet families every time I go to Fisher Houses, and that's the great thing about being the Vice President of Communications is I get to talk to families all the time. I would say one of my favorite families, the Erica Hewitt and her son, I talked to them many times. In fact, they were hopeful that they could be on the show today, but unfortunately her son had to go back to the hospital. He was in a motorcycle accident, and Fisher House was there for their family in Texas. And she left her house in Colorado when she heard her son was injured. She just left her house with nothing and drove down. And during the time that she was at Fisher House, she had her sister and her husband taking turns to be with her at the Fisher House, making sure that she was taking care of herself so that she could focus on her son, Skylar. And they were there for quite a while. And like I said, Skylar had to go back into the hospital, but I get to keep in touch with these families and hear how they're progressing. And hopefully he'll be able to come back out of the hospital again soon. You just meet so many people who, like I said, those injuries can be anything from an accident to, training accidents to illnesses. There's so many different stories out there about why people need Fisher House. I mean, it just shows how great the need really is.
Well, I love that you're there for them. You're there with the house, but you're also there with the incredible personnel and the people that really make these Fisher Houses so incredible and so effective and so warm and welcoming and important. And it's always great talking with you, Michelle Horn. And I appreciate you joining our Radiothon today.
Thanks so much, Larry. And I just want to say thank you to Jeffrey and Janice for their incredible donation, but really also to all of your generous listeners who are really coming through for military and veteran families. We are so grateful to everybody who's showing up today and helping.
Amen. And they're going to show up on the phone right now and all through the day today, right up through Vince Colonnese's finale. They're live.
And online, too.
Absolutely. WMAL.com/Fisher House. Thank you, Michelle Horn. Appreciate talking with you.
Thank you both. Have a great day.
Call 888-294-8560. Let your voice be heard. And every dollar is matched right now to the tune of $40,000. 888-294-8560.
Making sense of your world.
There are a lot of things that really tick me off.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Now, the WMAL Fisher House Radiothon continues. Please support our wounded warriors and their families by calling in your contribution now. 888-294-8560. That's 888-294-8560.
Please do make that donation, 888-294-8560 to the WMAL Fisher House Radiothon, and every dollar donated will be matched to the tune of $40,000 by our listeners. Two loyal listeners, Jeffrey and Janice from Mount Airy, have donated $40,000 for a match. So please, let's take advantage of that and their generosity, getting that double going. It's 5:37. Coming up at 7:05, we're going to speak with Kurt Schlichter. He's got some strong feelings about how the Senate is handling themselves in advising consent over Pete Hegseth's nomination. Then at 7:35, Steve Moore will tell us what he thinks Musk and Ramaswamy are going to do with the Doge strategy. And then at 8:35, Representative Chip Roy, also on Doge and making government more efficient. I'm Larry O'Connor, and that's Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy Fisher House Friday.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yes.
Patrice, you've testified on Capitol Hill before, haven't you?
Oh, a few times this year alone.
Have you ever threatened to beat somebody up or gotten into a screaming match or in some way escalated the situation into, nasty behavior?
I did get a little testy with one member, and my neck did snap just a bit. But no, I did not like.
Did
it
sound a little like this?
And I'll tell you, going to war, I didn't give a shit if I died. What I didn't want to do was fail. But your guys showed up that day and didn't give a shit.
That doesn't sound like you.
I did not.
That does not sound like you. So that was Mark Green, by the way, a little later in the day during the Secret Service hearing yesterday. This was supposed to be a bipartisan hearing about the Donald Trump assassination, okay?
Which, by the way, we haven't gotten any answers about yet.
Well, very few, very limited answers.
Not
certainly
enough.
about the suspect. So it wasn't good. Ronald Rowe is the acting director of Secret Service.
Yes.
Right? Ronald Roe was there to answer questions about that day in Pennsylvania. Representative Pat Fallon, Republican of Texas, was conducting
Great
some
guy.
questioning.
Met him several. Yes.
Seems to be a very effective congressman for his district. Passionate man. He changed the subject a little bit and put up a picture of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris attending the 9/11 commemoration just a couple of months ago, right? And just behind the president, former president, vice president, and senator who's now the running mate, which is, this is a pretty big Secret Service moment, right?
Yes.
Just behind the president and off his shoulder was a picture of the aforementioned Ronald Roe, the director of the Secret Service, standing in a position that, according to Congressman Fallon, would have been the lead position for the Secret Service agent that day.
Okay.
Mr. Roe was not filling in for that position.
Oh, interesting.
And Congressman Fallon started to suggest that he was there because he wanted to sort of self-promotion. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be up there because he wants to be director of the Secret.
Picture.
That seems to be what Mr. Fallon, Congressman Fallon, was suggesting. And then things got heated. Here, take a listen.
Special agent in charge of the detail. Were you the special agent in charge of the detail that day?
Actually, let me address this. Could you please, staff, leave that? Oh, no, leave that one up with the circle around me. Thank you. So actually, Congressman, what you're not seeing is the sack of the detail out of the picture's view. And that is the day where we remember the more than 3,000 people that have died on 9/11. I actually responded to Ground Zero. I was there going through the ashes of the World Trade Center. I was there at Fresh Kills.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you,
Congressman.
Were you the special agent in charge?
To show respect for a Secret Service member that died on 9/11.
Oh, that you're trying to be.
Do not invoke 9/11 for political purposes.
Oh, I'm not. I'm invoking this.
You are, sir.
Gentlemen,
and you are out of line.
I would like to ask him a question. Please.
You are out of line, Congressman.
Don't try to bully me. I am an elected member of Congress, and I'm asking you a serious question, and you are playing politics.
I am a public servant who has served this nation, and
you won't answer the question.
On our day, on our country's darkest day.
Committee will come to order.
Committee will come to order.
I'm asking you serious questions for the American people, and they're very simple. They're not trick questions. Were you the special agent in charge that day?
No, I wasn't. I was there representing the United States Secret Service, sir.
Mr. Fallon, your time's expired.
All right, so it went on a little further, but look, that's
you
just
get the gist of it.
That is like crazy town, right? You don't often see that sort of thing in a congressional hearing. Now, I got a couple of us, and we got Congressman Fallon who went on Fox last night and explained what happened, but I just want to say, so when you react emotionally like that, I mean, clearly he saw what was going on here. It's like, well, you weren't there. You weren't the special agent in charge of the detail, and yet here you are in this prominent position where you and when you he sounded a little defensive, let's say. It sounded to me like and so number one, it sounds like, that over-the-top reaction, don't you dare politicize. It's like, well, it sounds like you're politicizing 9/11
and then trying to throw out, I was there on 9/11. I served. I'm serving my country.
Right.
Then he flipped it to make it seem like, well, how dare you question my love for this country?
Exactly. It suddenly became this. And then secondly, and I think more importantly, this is the man who wants to be the director of the Secret Service. Isn't that job, by definition, supposed to be somebody who's supposed to stay cool under pressure? And not act emotionally under stress and not fly off the handle at moments like this. I mean, he seems a little tightly wound for that position.
Here's my thought. Okay, if someone else was supposed to be there, why were you there? Well, if there's a good response, well, this person had to do something. They were responding to something else. I stood in. It wasn't. I was just following protocol or following, but he didn't give that answer.
No, he didn't. Congressman, I know how seeing that picture may misconstrue the situation. Let me explain it to you. Yeah. So, anyway. Here's Congressman Fallon explaining.
Yeah, Congressman, you put up a picture on 9/11 where Roe was in the audience. He was next.
Let me try to skip ahead here because I just explained all that.
Therefore, that meant the Secret Service agent in charge of Vice President Harris's detail was then out of position. Roe did not attend the detail security briefing, the operational briefing. He had no operational reason to be there. I'm perfectly fine with him attending a 9/11 memorial, but he doesn't need to interject himself into the protective detail of the President of the United States. He endangered President Trump's life, Senator Vance's life, Vice President Harris's life, and Joe Biden's life. He wasn't wearing a vest. And he didn't want to answer these questions, so he acted like a schoolyard bully and started screaming at me.
What, sir, was the most important point you wanted Ronald Roe to address concerning what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania?
I wanted him to. So when we had a meeting in a skiff a couple of months ago, he used this opportunity as a appropriations request, and he wanted $2 billion additional dollars added to their budget. And I said, in the prior questioning was, how much would it have cost to have had a proper walkthrough in the AGR complex?
Yeah, I'm not on the fence on this. I'm on Congressman Fallon's side. That's amazing. Imagine having this guy come in to answer questions about the assassination attempt, and he just says, well, the problem is we need more money. Typical government. That is exactly what's wrong with the government right now.
And let's not forget who Ronald Roe is. He was appointed in place of Kimberly Cheadle, the former previous Secret Service director, who was canned, had to leave herself because of the failure and lapses in the way that the Secret Service handled themselves when President Trump was nearly assassinated.
Thank you.
What I heard yesterday is nothing has changed.
Right.
You do what you want to do. You go rogue. If you want to make it about yourself and inject yourself into a security detail, not wearing a vest, not being able to protect the most important people in this nation, you do what you want to do. So why should he continue to have the job?
And then grandstand and act offensive and start screaming at everybody. It's pretty amazing to me. And that's... And where was that passion? Where was that emotion? Where was that screaming at his former boss?
That's right.
Who put
Kimberly
the president
Cheadle.
in danger, and after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. We only see him get excited and emotional and angry and agitated when his behavior is questioned on the 9/11 memorial. That's fascinating. He wasn't that upset after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump.
Tells you something.
Enough. 545 WMAL traffic and weather. Visit DebbieHasTheBuyers.com.
You're listening to the WMAL Fisher House Radiothon. Call to donate 888-294-8560.
And Patrice, we're now joined by Julie Riggs. Julie Riggs joined the Fisher House Foundation this year, but she's worked with veteran service organizations her career. She's the wife and daughter of retired military members. And Julie, thanks so much for waking up and joining us today on our Radiothon.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Since you've sort of been in this world of veteran service organizations and military service organizations, I'd love for you to sort of explain, because there's so many great groups out there, and I know that our listeners hear from a lot of different groups this time of season in particular. What makes Fisher House a little different? What do you think happens at Fisher House that really sets them apart?
I mean, Fisher House really is the gold standard of the military and veteran nonprofit community. What sets us apart is a couple of things. I mean, one is just our charity rating. We have been for over 21 years. We've had 100% 4-star charity rating. So most of the money that we raise goes to the programs and services we provide. But also, I think, for me personally, having worked in military and veteran nonprofits throughout my career, it's having that tangible, visible impact. You can see how our houses impact the families when they're able to be close to their loved one and able to help them with the healing process, and also to be around others who understand what they're going through. That impact is so tangible, and I think that's what sets us apart.
You know, Julie, you're new to Fisher House, and so I'm sure you're just getting your feet wet, really hearing some unique stories. Can you share one or two, really surprising stories that you've heard of since you've been at Fisher House?
I think one of the ones I heard, I was in San Antonio recently, and I was at a Fisher House there, and I ran into a family. The woman was there with a beautiful little girl with curly hair, which is what caught my attention. And she said that she had actually just given birth to another child who was premature and in the NICU, and that they were staying here. But the child that I was admiring, the beautiful little girl, she also had gone through a NICU stay. So this was not the second, but actually the third time the family had stayed at a Fisher House. And that was her husband was actually injured during Afghanistan, Iraq. And so she was there during that time as well. And she just spoke about how knowing when her children were born that she could go to a Fisher House was such a relief for her and her family, that just having that security and not having to have that piece to play a part in what was going on all three times, just it warmed my heart. And it really was like a family and home to her.
And one of the interesting things about Fisher House that I've discovered over the years is Oftentimes, as the case is not that a family has one experience with Fisher House, it's a one-off and they walk away. Because of the nature of these injuries and some of the illnesses that our veterans are experiencing, this is an ongoing relationship that Fisher House has with these families.
That's very true. Many of our veterans will need care throughout the rest of their lives, and so the ability to be a repeat customer or guest, if you will, at a Fisher House really, again, sets up so that the families have that burden taken off of them, and the financial burden is not there either. And so I imagine if you had to find a hotel room in the D.C. area every time you went to Walter Reed or one of the other hospitals, I mean, it would just be a lot of out-of-pocket expense.
Oh, it'd break the bank.
Yeah.
It would absolutely break the bank for these families. And
Exactly.
it's you know, it's not just exclusive to D.C. That's why there are so many Fisher Houses, because our vets live everywhere around the world. And oftentimes they're places that are just out of reach financially. And thank God Fisher House is there. Thank God you're there working with Fisher House. It's great to meet you, Julie, and thank you for the great work you do.
Thank you, Julie.
That is Julie Riggs. You bet. Julie Riggs with Fisher House Foundation. Could you please just find it in your heart to donate? Again, even if it's just $20 for this holiday season. I recognize the economy has been rough this year. I do. But right now, because of a generous donation, a $40,000 matching gift from our listeners, your donation will be doubled. So please do that. 888-294-8560.